Killer Mike, who maybe, I don't want to insult anybody out there, but maybe a B-list rapper.
When you say Killer Mike, I think Killer Croc for whatever reason. I don't know
What's
why.
Killer Croc?
A
Beer?
No, it's the. I think I could be totally wrong. I think isn't it the character in Suicide Squad, the guy that looks like a lizard?
Oh, maybe. I don't know.
I just saw the end of that movie again last night, so
I didn't think it was a good movie, but I don't think it was a terrible movie.
it wasn't a good movie, but it wasn't a terrible movie.
But
That's
they
correct.
ixnay or they're sequeling, right, with no Will Smith, or
No
sequeling
Will
with
Smith.
no nobody. I think all the actors are gone.
I think that you're right, and I think that it's the guy that directed the first two Guardians of the Galaxy movie that's directing it.
Really?
Yeah.
He's switching teams.
Well, they cut him from Disney because he had old tweets that were
racial.
I
don't like that either.
They were something.
There's a lot of thoughts in my head, but you have to take the tweet as the current climate. So if it's in 2006, everyone's calling everyone gay.
Yeah.
Get over it.
Yeah.
Now, I understand, and it's brought to everyone's attention. We've all learned. Maybe we shouldn't say that because it insults people. In 2006, we didn't know insulted people, so take it as that.
In 2013, we didn't know that either.
Yeah.
Because I remember having to ask that question on a show.
Yeah.
And getting reaction.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Now I have a bunch of things in my head, but what we're starting with is there's a huge. I don't want to go down the serious route, but there's a huge police shooting here against an African American kid, Stephon Clark. I didn't know it was so national.
It's very
but
national.
it's not like Reverend Al Sharpton's going on CNN and shit talking about it.
Yeah.
But let's bring it to a lighter side. Killer Mike, the B-list rapper, he basically made a Netflix reality show. I think he was on Rogan, but he made a Netflix show. Kind of poking fun at racial issues in the world. And so he goes around different, or in America particularly, against African Americans. And so he does like different black culture, like kind of social experiments in some way. So he goes like, each episode tackles a different thing. So like one episode he goes and he's like going to live a whole day. I think he went 24 hours and he only wanted to consume or live off black products, African American products. And so like he ends up not driving because there's no African American car companies.
Okay.
So he finds an African American grocery store or restaurant. He's like, all right, well, where's this food from? Does it come from an African American farm or whatever, right? Because I guess the history is, maybe years ago, after slavery is kind of being abolished, that a lot of African Americans did have agriculture as their trade, and not so much anymore. And so he's just trying to make historical points and wonder why we aren't producing our own things. And then he found like a charity group that makes bikes at an African American church or something, so he buys a bike from them to get around, blah 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 blah. But he does another one where he goes, I think, to the Crips, and he finds a group of Crips, and he's like, so his reference, it was actually good. So he goes on like Amazon, and the Hells Angels sell like merchandise.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like you can buy a Hells Angels shirt, and you can buy like maybe even like a food product by the Hells Angels, I think was his main point.
Sons of Anarchy or what?
No, it was, kind of, but it was like real Hells Angels. So he kind of got pissed off. He's like, well, they're like selling heroin, guns, and killing people. But because they do some charity work, everyone thinks it's cool to rock a Hells Angels hoodie or buy a Hells Angels phone case, right? And he's like, well, I'm going to do that in the African American community and see how it goes. And so he goes and gets to like a group of Crips, and how he's like talking to them, and obviously there's normal people that kind of are gang affiliated, and whether they call them gang affiliated or not, they don't speak that way because it's just their family and their community, right? They just maybe got into some violence, which probably happens down the street here with neighbors who don't like each other, whatever, right? It can happen with any race, any situation, any community, but the media labeled them gangs or whatever. So they end up making like a Crip Cola soda pop, and they're going to like all these lawyers and shit trying to like sell it and market it, and the guys are like all gung ho and they're trying to make money, and then they do like a couple surveys. They bring people in, and people are like, well, and then they basically bring up the exact point where like, yeah, when I think of Crip Cola, I think of gangs and violence and all this, and then the moderator kind of brings up like, well, what about the Hells Angels? The Hells Angels have all these products, and they're like, yeah, but they do charity work, and then the Crips are behind double mirror or whatever, so they can't see them. They're freaking out, like, man, they're doing this, like they're more violent than us and stuff. It's a good show though. It's a pretty good show, and it does bring up some like really good points in kind of a humorous manner.
Yeah, I would say I don't want to go deep into this hole because this is definitely a hole. But I'm just not a guy that is predisposed to having a lot of prejudices, except against like stupid people.
Yeah.
And stupid people come in all colors. So there's that. But like I haven't experienced. I know that there are people that have bad experiences with people from one race from another,
Right.
whatever,
or
and
even culture, like
culture.
Russians are jerks. Oh,
and they
Armenians
kind of
are
carry
jerks.
it with them, and I just haven't had those experiences.
Yeah,
like
it's very interesting.
We're a couple of white guys that people in general just get along with.
Yeah,
even if they don't there's anything provocative about either one of us, right?
Right.
So
I agree with you that and I use the word sketchy. Like I judge sketchy people, and sketchy people are of many colors, especially when you're in a metropolitan area or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, we're downtown. There's a lot of sketchiness in multiple colors, and so I don't like sketchy. And I'm going to judge sketchy. If he's walking at me, I'm going to walk the other way, despite the color. I don't want conflict.
Right.
And it is hard because I grew up in a really small school. Is very white. There's a lot of some Asians and a couple different races, but it's a small liberal arts school, so very expensive. And my mom taught there, so a lot of my friends ended up being white. And I was pretty lucky that my junior varsity basketball coach, he was from not great part area of St. Louis, and he kind of took me under his wing and showed me around Sacramento, and he showed me a little bit of diversity at kind of the teenage years. And then my college basketball career, I was one of two white guys on our basketball team, and so that also but I think it can go one of two ways when you're so isolated, right? One you could become racist,
right?
You understand why? Like we're segregated everywhere in our country. Like there's very few areas besides downtowns of places, where everyone lives together and gets along. It's just a sad reality. But I think there is a fine line of kind of judging people, which is human nature in a way, and then being racist or sexist or whatever, and then having your actions or your true thoughts dictate based on those qualities, rather than just, that guy, looks homeless and on a bunch of drugs. I'm not going to go hang out with him, regardless of color.
I think that, like my grammar school was, small rural town, but it was reasonably mixed. I would say for that kind of there a lot of Mexicans, a lot of white people, Mexicans. Probably a lower than average amount of lower than average from the general population amount of like black kids, kind of a lot of Asians, but like we didn't have those problems. I don't know. We didn't have, I was a long time ago. I'm not a young man, but it was easier. It was easier for me.
Yeah, me too. I've never really had any issues with friends or whatever, but it is weird, and I haven't been in the middle of it. I'm well aware that I do have some privilege and that I haven't been exposed to a lot of things, and I'm also well aware that I'm smart enough that I have seen and on the news or in real life that yes, I understand that people are going through things, and it's a constant work in progress. But
yeah, I grew up lower middle class. I've been living upper middle class for a long time now.
Yeah,
and I don't know.
Yeah, I'm very similar.
Yeah,
I'm very similar, and so it is hard, but luckily, I guess in strength sports, we are pretty diverse, which is kind of cool in America. There's a lot of African Americans, a lot of Asians, a lot of Latins. A lot of people find strength rather than more typically, you go to a golf tournament or you raised upper class and all you do is golf. There's probably only going to be white people, and then eventually, once you start to filter through, even in basketball, there's not a lot of white people no more. There's a lot of white people in say swimming, hockey, tennis. It sucks not to go down this hole we're going down, but it is a lot to do with money. You start to think of some of these sports, and me and Connor were talking about the other day, like even like gaming, whether you want to call it a sport or not, I don't give a fuck. We're not going down that hole, but you get into gaming or swimming or golf or certain sports start to cost you bare minimum $1,000 to get into. You get a pair of golf clubs, $1,000. You get a nice PC to game on, $1,000. You do all these things. Like, what's it cost to play soccer or basketball? Like a $10 ball at Kmart. Like that's all you need, and then there's public parks everywhere.
Right.
You can go run around, kick around. So like you start to understand that it is a money thing that maybe drives people towards the sport. Hockey's got way more equipment.
Yeah.
You need an ice rink. You need all these pads. You need a stick. You need all this shit.
Yep.
You start to play a basic sport, and anybody can get into it.
And largely, you need a parent to drive you a lot. You need a lot of extra hours in the week to go to practices.
Yeah.
and all that stuff. And you have to keep your academics up if you're playing on some kind of a school team or just if your parents just force you to keep your academics up while you're playing a sport. I mean,
yeah,
just so many
dance or something like that's more similar, right? You need the little outfit, you need the shoes, you need to be driven to the studio, again, rather than just a park messing around. Yeah,
not to change the subject, but to change the subject. I'm totally fascinated right now at this point in my life with talent, with people who just have natural talent in some area or more than one area. I'm completely blown away by that.
Yeah,
all the time.
Yeah, I think about that too. And then the people, what interests me maybe even more is the people that have this talent and never find it. Right? This guy's 30 and he just deadlifted the first time and he's fucking strong as shit.
And doesn't know it.
Or what about the person that could have done that and never picked up a barbell? Or the
Right.
person that could have been insane at basketball and never even played? Like, there's so many gifted people that, like in SEMA, our buddy, like, that dude probably would have been a hell of a football player. Yeah, I think he played soccer and kind of at a high level, but he's freaking 6'3", 260 pounds and yacked. You know, like, bro, you probably would have been a hell of a football player, but just never played football.
Yeah, just because that's just not where he didn't grow up into that in that environment. Yeah. Craziness. All right. Shall we talk about what we actually came to talk about?
Yeah, I guess talent, all this, we can wrap it up. We'll do a shit segue, and we're heading to finding career path. And finding where you fit in, and maybe it does have to fit in with your gifts and intelligence, because intelligence, I think, you can define it however you want, but book smart or street smart or logic or whatever you want to get into, but some of that may be genetic as well. And how do you find your foothold in maybe a career in fitness, which is still surprising to me. I guess it's not surprising, but it blows my mind how many questions I get. Mike, I want to do what you do, or Mike, how do you become a trainer, or even more basic questions, which are absolutely annoying. Give me some context. Someone just literally emailed me and said, how do I get a job in fitness? What is that? Yeah,
in fitness.
Yeah, you want to be a trainer. You want to run a gym. You want to own a gym. You want to be a collegiate strength coach, and that is kind of what our question of the day is. What, how, and what is the best way to succeed in this industry? Is it kind of certifications? Is it old school schooling, college, CSCS, that route, or is it mentorship and kind of learning by experience?
Yeah, that's a good question. One of the things that my mind always comes back to, because I did a little bit of it myself, is just having the flexibility to work for free.
For sure.
For some periods of time, and not everybody can do that, and that's going to be a limiting factor. It's difficult if you don't have any experience at all. It's very difficult to get somebody to pay you to do a thing.
Yeah.
If you've never done it at all,
or doing all at once. So a little bit of my history that I've kind of shared, but not too much. I played college basketball, dropped out, and then I got really into strength and conditioning and thought I wanted to take that route. I didn't know what it was. So got my parents' approval to drop out of college as long as I was doing something. So they gave me, they basically paid for my personal training school, which was a couple grand. Went through NASM, so I got my certificate, and as that's happening, I'm trying to open a gym, a personal training studio. I just joined a super training gym, and then I got a job at a commercial gym. And so kind of talking about learning free stuff, like I was paying money to go to super training, which in my head was paying money for like experience and a mentorship in a way. I was getting around stronger people, more experienced people than me. I'm opening my own gym, which I already knew I had more knowledge in strength and conditioning than most people that own their own gym, so I felt confident in that. And then I'm getting experience by hands-on, not only the certificate, getting more of the book smarts, but hands-on kind of day-to-day soccer mom, whatever, at a commercial gym.
Right.
And going to junior college, still taking a couple classes, doing I never got a degree or anything, but I was taking classes towards like PT type stuff. So I was taking injury and prevention, taking like trainer courses, but it wasn't strength and conditioning. It was like wrapping ankles, small injuries, kind of the trainer that would be on the
trainer
being on the side of a field, and then like sports nutrition, anatomy, kind of some of the basics there. So I never went deeper as we're breaking these things up from experience and mentorship, old school schooling, certificate, but I tried to like graze all of them.
Yeah, that makes sense. When I graduated with my bachelor's, which is in marketing, I was looking for just like any kind of experience. And one of the best things you can get in a lot of jobs is writing experience, regardless of what kind of writing experience it is. So I actually did an internship with Caltrans. I wrote an employment recruiting thing for a particular class of employees. So I had to like learn about what their jobs were. I went around and interviewed a bunch of people. I went to a bunch of different offices and learned how the job was structured and what the normal career path was and all that kind of stuff. And then wrote up a thing that they actually printed and all this stuff. But I did that entirely for free.
Yeah. Yeah, I think marketing
was months.
I think any job can be broken down into these kind of categories too, like old school schooling, college, master's, whatever, experience or mentorship, actually doing, or some type of certificate or something. And I think marketing is very similar, where you could probably be very successful going through the old school process and getting your master's, getting your MBA. You probably learn some stuff, and maybe the job you land. But you could probably be really successful being 16 and interning for some, at least nowadays, working for some social media company, learning a ton of tools.
Yeah.
You have a little bit of logic, a little bit of creativity, plus some experience. You could probably be really good at marketing as well, potentially.
Marketing is one of those things. I always say this. Marketing is one of those things that everybody thinks that they can do, but not everybody can do.
For sure not.
And that's why like having a degree in marketing is not always the strongest position because everybody thinks they can do it.
When I was going to say, literally like strength and conditioning, right? Like, I read this book, I read that book, I have my CSCS, I learned all these things, but then how do you take all these tools, mix in some creativity, and apply them to different situations? So it's the same with marketing as it is with different athletes. So there's tons of high-level strength and conditioning coaches at the collegiate D1 or pro level that probably suck. And then there's tons that are probably in your mom and pop shop down the gym that you've never heard of that may be the best coach around. Alan Thrall obviously is very popular on YouTube, but Alan's a really good coach, and if he didn't have YouTube, no one would know. Right, he's just a random coach on a random street out in the middle of nowhere, Sacramento. But he's a very intelligent guy. He's surrounded himself with a lot of smart people. He's taken watches, learns, which is kind of that part of the experience, getting your knowledge. And so have I. Number one has probably been my experience being around other people, and in my off time, I literally consume thousands of hours of podcasts and YouTube and articles from what I thought was the best strength coaches in the world, let alone training with them, interviewing them, kind of even on this show, right? We're just, you and I, we're acting as kind of the vessel to get this information to iTunes, but through it, you and I learn from the best, Andy, who we just had on, Jordan, all these really, really smart coaches who are literally doing the science themselves were number one to come in contact with that.
Yeah. I will say too that that going to school and like I actually just like writing a master's thesis or a master's project or in the case of our guest coming up a dissertation, a doctoral dissertation. That's a lot of work that it's like an internship except that you're paying for it.
You're paying to do work kind of.
Exactly. And against exacting standards and constantly psyching yourself out. That's
plus in the case of our guest, our case is Ramsey. He's a strength and conditioning coach for the Sacramento Kings in the NBA. Good buddy of mine, but he just went through all this himself under Brad Schoenfeld, who's another friend, an amazing mind in the strength and conditioning world. But Ramsey was full-time in the NBA coach, which for those that don't know, he travels with the team. He warms up the team, let alone the actual just lifting weights. He goes to team meetings with the coaches. He goes to the team meetings with the team. Like he's more than full-time. NBA season, if you're good, goes from, I guess, September to June.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then in the offseason, he's probably got to work with some of the rookies. He's part of the drafting process. It's a year-round job, and the hours are well beyond 40 hours a week. Plus, he's doing his schooling somehow online.
Yeah, they don't shut down the training facility.
No.
During the offseason.
No, it's only the basketball court stuff. I think there's some rules about. But I think
the training facility stuff is all Like I don't know how many players are local anymore.
Yeah, I think that depends. I think some of the young guys stick around.
Yeah, if I was one of the young guys, I sure as hell would stick around.
Yeah.
You want to be like showing up close to the flagpole, I think.
Yeah,
You know?
So Ramsey kind of has that all. He interned for the Kings, I believe, before getting the head job. He did some regular college. He obviously lifted weights himself. Really smart guy, and so I thought he would be a good case to bring in on because in a way he's the old school way. He went to school, he got a CSCS, and then interned and then got the job. Don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure he's got to be one of the youngest strength and conditioning coaches at the pro level. I want to say he got the job at 25, 26, 27, which is really cool and a lot of responsibility. And first time I met him, not only did we just get along because we talk shit and play basketball our whole lives, but two, his like I could just tell right away from again interviewing I don't know how many hundreds if not thousands of the best scientists, strength and conditioning coaches, strength athletes in the world. I can just call BS right away. And plus, hopefully, I have 10 years now into the game. I have some knowledge of strength and conditioning myself, and I just know that he not only knew what he was talking about, but he worked every day to know even more than what he was talking about. He's constantly trying to improve his craft. So we'll dig in, see what kind of knowledge he has on what career path may help you guys.
Yeah, I think that the button on this one is that there are a lot of different ways to do it. Like, how did he figure out the right path for him?
Yeah, and maybe what's the best way to actually become good?
Yeah,
because there are some standards that are set by the industry. Like you have to have a CSCS to be a collegiate strength coach or a pro strength coach. But what's the best way to actually just become the best strength coach?
Yeah,
regardless of job, maybe.
And the other question I think I want to ask him is, what would he do differently?
Yeah,
yeah,
how to learn and how to fix your mistakes.
All right. Here comes Ramsey.
Yeah. Fastest strength coach on the planet.
Gotta be.
At me.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's fast, bro.
It wasn't that fast. Frank cheats all the time, though. You could keep that one in here.
I mean, Fox is probably faster than Frank, but who else?
No, Frank is really fast. It's funny, like, those guys are really fast, but they're faster when they have a ball in their hand.
Well, and their first step. If you were trying to stay in front of them, you're done.
Yeah. Their first step and, like, the fastest, like, you could find the clips of Fox, like, getting it and just kind of looking up, seeing what he sees, and he's like, okay,
dribbles.
go time. And
yeah,
it's
two
like,
dribbles.
holy.
It's wild. The first step is the biggest thing because there's kids I've played against that I'm way faster than. Baseline to baseline, I'm smoking them.
Right.
But you can't stay in front of them. Their first step for some reason is stupid. Jordan even. I bet you Jordan's not that fast.
Right.
But his first step so fucking mesmerized me.
Yeah. And basketball is so much acceleration that being fast from a top speed is like, okay, that's cool, but you have to slow down all the time, so it doesn't really matter.
It'll be better if you're a wide receiver, like a forward in soccer, probably.
Exactly. Yeah.
We should probably explain what we're talking about. There's an Instagram video, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, Ram coaches everyone. Ram, he coaches strength coach for the Sacramento Kings. Probably the best story in 2018-19 sports. And I'm biased because I'm a Sac fan, but I think it's pretty unbiased to say that. ESPN, people are wilding right now about the Kings.
It's fun.
It's a lot of fun, dude.
It's fun.
Me and my little bro, I coached him. He's not my real little bro, but he's my little bro. Anyway, I coached him in basketball. He's probably 4 years younger than me. Huge hoop head. He was in Europe for the last 3 years, came back, and he's like, bro, I've been in Europe just Googling what's happening in Sacramento. He's like, now I moved back and the Kings are hot. Like, we talk every day, like, bro, the Kings are killing it. There hasn't been energy since like 2001 like this.
No. Yeah. It's such a good story, that bringing the team or keeping the team here, building a new arena, the whole 9 yards is a great story. And then to have them be exciting to watch and win a little bit, more than a little bit.
Like, even when we lose, it's so entertaining.
Yeah, it's close and they're fun.
Like, it's when the ball goes up, I turn into a fan. It's just like, man, this is cool.
How many years have you been with the Kings? Because you've been with them as kind of an intern to start.
Assistant. So I spent 2 years as assistant, and then I'm in my third season or finishing my third season as the head. So 5 years total now.
So you've been with some not so great teams.
Yeah.
And now the team winning. That's cool.
So it's been fun to watch. Now, knock on wood, the season's far from over, so we got to keep going.
Yeah,
because we have
absolutely.
It's just now getting exciting.
32 wins now. Which, if it ended today, that's not that cool. So we want to keep it going.
Yeah.
But,
isn't 32 the highest number in the last 10 years by the end of the season? Is that
I think
correct?
Vegas odds were like a 30-win season.
20,
total
25 or something. It was bad.
Disrespectful Vegas.
27.
Disrespectful Vegas. Don't do us like that, man.
We have my buddy Chris here being our stat guy. He's a big Kings fan. You can check out the Sixth Man fan page on Facebook. That was all his doing.
Sixth Man had to be Bobby Jackson, right? Were you a Kings fan growing up? No, you're probably a Warriors fan, huh? Are you allowed to say that now?
I was both.
Okay, fair.
And so like I had just started watching basketball, right? You start playing basketball when you're like 4 or 5 years old, but I just started getting to a point where I appreciated watching it.
Yeah.
In that like 2000 area, so
yeah,
Bobby Jackson works for us now, and
yeah,
I'll run around screaming, "What's up, O2 Bobby?" Like, I just call him O2 Bobby.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. He's stuck around with the city. A couple players have, obviously Vlade and some people have been in the community, but they're a big part of the community back in the day. And the Warriors weren't good. I mean, they had like Steven Jackson or something, nothing. So the Kings were it. We're back in it.
Yeah. Well, actually, this kind of feeds into the question. The question is about finding your career path. Like, you have a job that a lot of people would love to have, not just with the Kings, but period. Just that level of position with a professional franchise. And we were kicking around. It's like, how do you get there? Is it always school? Do some people get there through doing certifications and just doing a lot of grunt work over the years? And
buddy system, old brotherhood.
Yeah, all that. Like, how do people get there? And if the other question is, if you could do anything differently about how you got where you got, what would that be?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'll answer the latter part first because that's the easy one. I wouldn't do anything different. I've been completely fortunate in my career. So I was handed the head job, or I would like to say earned the head job at 25 years old. So for me to say I would do anything different would just be completely selfish and unappreciative of the opportunities I've been given. So I wouldn't do anything different. But to go back to like the former question on the front end of like, how does that become a reality? It's probably some mix of everything that you mentioned, right? So it's probably some mix of getting formal education and getting the degrees required to both learn the knowledge, the fundamental knowledge that you need, but also be respectable on paper. Like, that's part of it, right? You have to submit a resume typically.
What was your bachelor's? Like kinesiology? Is that kind of the go-to, or some kind of exercise science?
So I did my undergrad at UC Santa Barbara, and they had an exercise science minor within it, but they didn't have a major. So while picking up the minor credits, that's what actually cleared me for my master's, which was in sport performance. And that was something I learned along the way. Like, I originally thought you can only get a master's degree in something you get your bachelor's in, but I ended up at a UC school UC University, which for the listeners, University of California system, that doesn't really focus on strength and conditioning.
No.
So
even America kind of doesn't when you talk about formal education.
For sure. Yeah, no, for sure. And probably rightfully so. Like, most of our dollars in research goes to or comes from National Institute of Health, who care about things like obesity,
cancer.
Like real problems that we have. Like, we don't really have problems in making better athletes.
Yeah, we've been the best at that for a while.
Yeah, so you're not going to get money for that. But that was actually something I learned along the way. I was like, you don't have to you can get your master's degree in something totally separate than your undergrad, and if you play it right, you can get the prerequisites for it, and you don't have to actually go out of your way to get more schooling done.
Right.
So that was like the minor. So I enrolled in that and got all of those courses. My undergrad degree was actually in communication. And from a UC, which is a heavy research institution, it was actually it was beneficial. It allowed me to do a few things. So I graduated in 3 years, which was nice, which kind of allows you to accelerate things. So
that's hard. That's hard in any degree, let alone in the UCs. Like, for, again, those people that don't know the California system, like, UCs are really good schools, and typically they're heavily people. 5 years probably average now?
Yeah,
probably 5-year average to graduate from UC.
Sort of the top level of public
for sure.
university.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so so I did that in 3 years, and I got that done by doing summer school, and then just taking on ridiculous amounts of units. Like, I had to go bug like the dean, like, yo, I need double me up, and they're like, yo, you can't do that, and I'm like, well, just trust me, like.
Were you was the goal in mind from that early stage of minor in exercise science or in communication, was the goal to be a professional strength coach?
Yeah, so originally my goal, I went into undergrad like thinking I'm going to be an accountant. Like, UC Santa Barbara has a good accounting school. Some of my friends today are accountants at the major four, the big groups of accounting firms, and I went into it thinking like I'm gonna be an accountant, like I'm gonna be 30 years old and drive a BMW and like all this like kind of some of the stuff we were talking about before, right? Like
Wolves of Wall Street living.
Yeah, exactly. and then you get into it, and it's funny because I always tell people like I learned quickly that I wanted to become a strength and conditioning coach, mainly because I didn't want to live in Excel spreadsheets, right? Which I now kind of live in Excel spreadsheets.
Yeah, you end up there anywhere.
But I also didn't even know strength and conditioning was a real career because I didn't go to a high school with strength and conditioning coaches. I grew up in the Bay Area, and we didn't have strength and conditioning. There was a weight room, and like your sport coach took that on, but that wasn't a thing. So after my first year, I was playing around with some different ideas, and I was considering actually transferring. So I went to UC Santa Barbara, tried to walk onto the basketball team, didn't make the basketball team. For the listeners, I'm 6'2" on my head, but I'm a good 5'9" on a Tuesday or Wednesday. So I didn't make the basketball team, and I'm thinking of transferring to play D2 level ball at UC San Diego. At the time was the major thought because my mom wanted me to stay in the UC system because of the things we just talked about. And so I called my older brother, and he's like, yo, why don't you just become like a personal trainer? You're always working out. And I'm like, what the heck is a personal trainer? He's like, man, you just take a test and like pass it. And I'm like, okay, I'm kind of good at that. So that's kind of how it just all started. It was like, okay, personal trainer, you make money. But then from there, immediately when that was my first summer, so I was 19 when that occurred. I come back and I go into the D1 athletics facility, and I'm like, yo, I want to intern. And they're like, yeah, all right, kid, just give us a resume. So I walk home and like didn't think nothing of it, followed up. They're like, yeah, send us a resume. I'm like, I already did that, but okay. And so eventually I just keep walking into this place, and eventually they're like, man, this kid's not going to leave us alone. So
you could do the laundry or something.
Yeah, like I'm towels. Like, look, just let me watch, and I'll clean the weights, like whatever it is. I just want to learn. And it was like kind of at that moment when it was like, okay, this is a career. Yeah. And if it's going to be a career and I'm not going to be an NBA player, maybe I can help NBA players. So that's kind of how it all really started. So from there, it turned into like an internship. And I guess to go back to the original question, like this is just how I got here. But I think that these experiences are pretty similar throughout. It's just, how your journey unfolds is based on a lot of different things. But most strength and conditioning coaches take on internships. They take on low-paying opportunities. They learn. I always tell people, dominate the opportunity in front of you. Like if you're currently training 5-year-olds, then be the best in the world at training 5-year-olds. Like and that's not to say like I'm the best in the world at what I do, but you want to just have the mentality of like, I am going to commit to whatever this opportunity is and I'm going to dominate it because the next opportunity could be right around the door. And so I was training the Division I athletics programs. As I went on to get a master's degree, I stayed in touch with the people at UC Santa Barbara, specifically Chip Schaefer. And then after that, he tried to actually bring me back and hire me, but because of a few other things, we couldn't make that happen. So I returned to Santa Barbara to take on Santa Barbara City College, and that was really cool. I was 22 at the time, fresh off a master's. I did the master's in 1 year, so here I am 4 years out of high school.
What's that normally, 2 years?
2 years, yeah. So here I am 4 years out of high school, graduated high school in 2009. 2013, I'm the head of 17 community college programs, strength and conditioning. And just exponential learning, like just everything from how to kind of coach up and understand what sport coaches want, how to kind of demand at your level, because here I am 22 and training athletes that are 22, like some athletes at the community college over 22.
We talked about that too. My junior college, some guys were 30 out of prison.
Yeah, no, for sure.
It's a little different junior college world.
Yeah, and nobody can be cut because most of those classes, most of the sport teams are actually courses that you enroll in.
Yeah.
So
you might not get a jersey, but you're coming to practice.
Yeah, you can practice. So you got track and field and football teams with 70 people. Like, it was crazy, but it was just exponential growth. You're like, man, this is like, there was times where I would just step back for just, a quick second and be like, man, this is dope. Like, this is really happening. So yeah, I did that for a year, but after 1 year there, and I was pretty locked in. I had started the doctorate at the time, and I'm like, man, I'm locked into this. Like, let's do this. At least for the next 4 years as I earn this doctorate degree. And then sure enough, Chip calls and he says, hey, you want to be my assistant with the Sacramento Kings? And I'm like, man, like my only kind of hesitation was, hey, Chip, I don't care about the pay. I don't care about the hours. The only thing I care about is that I can continue doing school. And he's like, yeah, we'll support it. And I'm like, and not support it financially, but we'll allow you to leave, because there was occasionally, like every semester I would have to leave and go to campus and learn. And they allowed me to do that. So other than that, I was like, man, lock me in. So
was that the same doctorate with Brad Schoenfeld? Yeah.
Yeah, same program.
Yeah.
Brad Schoenfeld, Nick Winkleman, Brent Alvar, who was my dissertation chaired a few other people other than those two. He chaired Matthew Rea. He was the one that kind of recruited me into it. So I'm like, man, this could be something pretty cool. So So yeah, I mean now so that's kind of the education internship kind of route. So you want to get degrees. Do you need a doctorate degree? Absolutely not. Do you need a master's degree? Probably not. But at this point, like we get internship applications for master's degree candidates. Like so it's
I'm sure.
A little more competitive.
I mean even like DPTs and PhDs have applied to our internship. So do you need any of this? No. But if you want to be competitive and you want to stand out a little bit, like it's becoming a field that has a master's degree requisite of just like making sure that you can compete.
And that's a bare minimum of CSCS, yeah? To even get the job, which is bare minimum to even take the test for CSCS is just a bachelor's, yeah?
Yep.
And that's for, I think, quote, you might know, you obviously probably do know better than me, but is that like D2 and up? I know D1, that's the same. And pros is the same.
I think it really just depends on like the schools and the athletic directors. And we now have in the collective bargaining agreement with the National Players Association that to be an NBA strength coach, you do have to have a CSCS on staff. So, yeah, I mean, like certification-wise, the gold standard, in my opinion, is the CSCS, which is from the National Strength and Conditioning Association. Short is NSCA on that. And then CSCS stands for Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist. And, yeah, so like Mike mentioned, you need a degree or a bachelor's degree to sit for it. You can actually sit for it before, and then you just can't get your results until you get the degree. So so that's what I did. I sat for it during my senior year, and then once I graduated, I was able to get the CSCS itself. Now, beyond that, like I like to tell people start there. I mean, I tell everybody, like, if you're really committed in this field, start there. Do you need a certification or is it the best in the world? Like, no. But if nothing else, it shows that you're committed to trying to learn these things and apply it, and you're not going to try to, like, find or finagle your way around some loophole. Like, it's what everybody has, get it. Like, you know, and if it's a price thing, like, no, I'm not hearing it, right? Like, find a way.
Yeah.
Find a way.
It sounds like it's very competitive when it comes down to it. Because you have people who are, you know, have that kind of educational preparation asking to be interns, and it's very competitive
for sure, and especially at this level, right? Like, because it is a cool job. Like, it's fun to be a part of especially something like Sacramento Kings, right? Where we're watching a city develop, we're watching a team kind of be the heart of that right now, and so yeah, I mean, it's fun, and that's not like every job has its perks, and every job has some other things that come along with it, but yeah, I mean, if you want to be at the NBA level, it's pretty competitive. Now, it's probably a little different for like NFL, for example, where your staff is probably you can have up to 3 to 4 strength coaches on staff, and usually that's going to be more like who you know, I think, a little bit. But every level is like, I wouldn't be where I'm at if I didn't know the former head guy here. And I now have an assistant, and I met him in grad school, right? So that's even more to the point that the relationships that you're going to build in these settings can go a long way for sure.
Yeah, what I've heard football-wise is similar to being a head coach. Is you go to the high school level, potentially maybe a junior college level. Like you kind of said, you dominate that. Like, I'm one of the best strength coaches at junior college in America. Oh, all right, maybe you get a D3 spot, maybe you get a D1 spot,
right.
And then if all plays out, who you know and you've done well, maybe you get a pro spot. But it is an odd job because who's the highest paid strength coach in the world? Bama?
I think so, yeah.
Like $3 million a year or something stupid.
Yeah, I mean, at least in the college setting.
No, I think in the pro. I think he beats pros.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
no, for sure. I imagine he does.
I think it's like $3 million a year, something crazy. And so there is some money to be made. There's a lot of perks and getting to hang out in the cool stories, cool athletes, things of that nature. Mm-hmm. What do you think? Now, that was kind of the career path and how to get to where you are. But how about, I think you're one of the best strength coaches on the planet for multiple reasons, but I'm going to let you hopefully describe with my answer. I'm reverse psychologing it. What do you think gets you to have the best amount of knowledge? My personal experience, I did NASM, which below CSCS, I think is one of the best certifications. I didn't have a degree, hated college. Mm-hmm. But I learned some things. But I've also trained probably who knows how many thousands of athletes in the last 10 years. I've had a certain amount of mentors over the last past years. I've hung out with all these people. So there's kind of the old school schooling, certification route. There's kind of experience, what you're doing, actually applying it. And then there's kind of a mentor or direct learning from maybe another human. What, you don't have to give a number to it or percentage to it, but which, how'd you go about maybe where'd you learn the most, or where are things are most applicable for you out of those three, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, for sure the experience part. I I think you just learn things that you can't learn unless you're just in the trenches, like how to handle people. Because ultimately, you can write the best programs in the world, like, but if you can't get athletes to do it, if you can't get people to buy in and believe in it and believe in you, then it's, it might as well be in a textbook because no one's gonna do it. So I think for sure that's where your most like practical knowledge is gonna come from. But there's also things that you won't learn in those settings. Like you're not gonna learn you're not going to intuitively learn through practice how to force velocity profile somebody.
Right.
Like that's just not going to come because it's not necessarily part of the coaching side. Now it should be applied and it can influence your coaching, but you're not just going to learn it by hanging out with athletes or coaching athletes or writing programs or testing and retesting and those types of things. Yeah, like but for sure I think the experience is just something that can't be replaced or you can't learn about it unless you're just in it. Like you got to make mistakes to learn from them, and you got to have an athlete tell you no and tell you, and like if you guys got to go through all of that, you know. But I think they're all important. Like you talk about the internships, because that's where you're going to get some of that mentorship, and you're going to find mentors for yourself. The formal education, because you also get mentors through that, right? Like you can have really good professors. Like some professors can really, want you to succeed, and they become really influential in not only your career but your life. Like my high school teacher is someone that I still think about, someone influencing my career, but she never taught me about strength and conditioning.
Sure.
Right.
She doesn't have a coaching tree, is what you're saying?
No coaching tree for sure.
Yeah, and potentially, hopefully, you get a good mentor that they also had a little taste of all three.
Mm-hmm.
I think just sometimes it does suck. You might end up with a teacher who knows everything about anatomy and biomechanics, but they never coached a soul in their life.
Right.
So you're only really funneling in one aspect from that person. But hopefully, you get a really good anatomy coach or teacher or whatever, and they have a dip of all three, so you kind of get a taste of all three. They overlap, I guess is what I'm trying to get.
For sure.
They can overlap if you find hopefully someone who's experienced. There's tons of professors that used to go and dig up dinosaur bones, and then now they're teaching about dinosaur bones rather than just the person that read about Jurassic Park.
For sure.
Obviously, you're a pretty smart guy. I mean, if you powered through school as fast as you did, like, so what about the folks who aren't?
Yeah, what about dummies like me, dude?
I love it.
You're really
actually
popping my balloon over here.
No,
for my future.
this is actually the question that I want to answer, because I don't think I'm like that smart, quote unquote.
So you just that hardworking, or
I was just talking to a bunch of grad students just this past week. I went over to a grad program just to give them, talk shop, and like I walked in, I said, look, I don't have a lecture, but we could do Q&A for as long as you guys want, and it just turned into like a 2-hour freestyle session. But to me, it's no offense to anybody, but like strength and conditioning is not like, we're not solving the world's problems. Like most of this stuff can be learned if you dedicate. Now, some people learn faster than others, and I get all that stuff. But like my outgoing message there, which I think can hold true here to the listeners, is I just treat everything like competition. Like honestly, like do I like school? No, but if I look at it like competition, then I'm just gonna try to like dominate it, right? And now some of it is like financial decisions. The fastest way to end up in student loan debt is to take longer to get school done, right? So
that's true.
For me, it was like, okay, if I get this done faster, it's just gonna be the credit hours you have to pay for, but like all the extra stuff that comes with it, like housing and taking classes just for like, no, like I was pretty fortunate to be 19 and decide what I wanted to do, and then from there, like, put my head down and let's get it done.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part for most people.
For sure.
With deciding what they want to do. My story is similar to yours besides the schooling. Like, we played sports, all right, and we're not going to go to the NBA no more. How do I stay involved with some kind of athletics?
For sure.
But some people, I don't think, know what the hell they want to do in life until they're 40, 50, and maybe they rotate jobs a bunch of times.
I'm still figuring that shit out myself.
But then it's hard to go back to school or whatever.
For sure.
And that's a whole other topic for a whole other day about our education and how to maybe expose kids to different jobs, like actual freaking jobs, so they can get a taste of what the day to day is like.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Do you think that for some people, and I want to say guys, and I think that that's actually how it plays out, but it could just as easily be women. It turns into a little bit of a default position where they just they can't think of anything else to do, so they get a kinesiology degree or whatever.
Maybe, yeah. Like that could be part of it, because like exercise is cool, so learn about it.
This is the place where I'm comfortable.
Yeah,
this is the world that I'm comfortable with. So I'm
that's
try
like
to
when you
get
hear the degrees on like a college sports game, like, oh, point guard, he's 6'6" and business degree, and you got your shooting guard, he's 6'7" business degree. It's just like, well, that one's probably pretty easy. They're gonna shuffle some numbers and get them through.
Right. I mean, Yeah, and I think now that Instagram has kind of changed the world.
Yeah.
Because now you got people like there's some 18-year-old in high school right now that wants to like be yoked like the guy he's looking at every day on Instagram.
Yeah.
So he might go and study that now, and so like that might influence some of it. So I mean, yeah, I think it's just applicable to everything. Now there's some more science involved, and some people might not like, which is why you might end up picking other degrees. But again, like to me, it's not really like a smart thing. Like I think most people, if they commit to it, they can figure it out. What it probably is a sacrifice thing. Like who actually wants to sacrifice the time on Friday night? Like you want to go party.
Yeah.
Well, I don't. You know what I mean? So it's like it's just a sacrifice thing, really. Yeah, I mean, the kinesiology probably can end up as a degree of like a default position for some people, but to me, it's not a bad spot because you actually end up with knowledge that's super applicable to everybody. Like everyone in the world should work out, and everyone eats. So like nutrition, this is why fitness is just this thing that everybody thinks they know about, and why you can have Instagram models making X amount of millions of dollars because everybody eats and everybody works out, or everybody should do both. And so now you'll end up with a knowledge that's pretty good.
It's funny you bring up Instagram because that's literally what kind of cued this question to pop in my head when we knew we were going to have on is like people. That's probably the most common question, like especially over the last 2 years. I feel like Instagram, YouTube, all that stuff's kind of really grown over the last 7-8 years, but like the last 2 years, people ask me like, I want to do what you do.
Yeah,
I do. I don't know what I do for one. Two, I don't know how to get here.
No,
and then three, and another kid just asked me like, I want to do fitness. I'm like, bro, what does that mean?
Yep.
I don't know what that means. Like, yeah, you want to do what Ram does? That's cool. He's in the trenches. And I was in the trenches, with soccer moms and things back in the day. That's a cool life. You can make some money. You can make a lot of relationships. You learn a lot of people, a lot of communication skills. But if you just want to, take booty pics on the internet, that's not what I can teach you. Yeah, well, there'll be another podcast.
So, just to kind of cap all this off, too, does it help? Okay, I mean, you're obviously in good shape. You're a strong guy. We were talking about
strong is relative in this.
Strong is relative, but that's
you're fast. You're proving how fast you are on the court.
But does that make a difference in working with athletes? Did they see you on even though you're not, you're 5'9", not 6'9"? I mean, does that help?
I mean, I think so. It's actually like a pretty common, I think, debate in our field is like, do you have to like look the part or? I don't know. Like I'm not the coach with 20 plus years of experience, so I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I know. But in my opinion, if you look like you worked out, guys are just gonna appreciate it and they're gonna probably listen. Like in my opinion, it's hard to take advice from people about things if they don't look like they practice what they preach. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to like. I always think about this example, and I've got this from someone before. Is like I can't jump as high as my athletes. But I'm confident I can help them jump higher, right? So you don't necessarily have to be the strongest person in the world. You don't need to have 4% body fat. You don't need to be able to dunk the basketball. But if you look like you play the part a little bit, then it's probably going to help get a little bit of buy-in. And we've seen that. Like I've been in there squatting at times, and guys will come in and like they'll see it and they'll hype you up the same way you try to hype them up, and they appreciate. It's funny. I was just in there today. And one of our players like, yo, man, I ain't seen you lifting all that weight lately. Like, what's up? And it's just like, but it was a cool reminder that guys, we're humans, right? We just take note of everything, and you never know when it's going to play a role. But for sure, I think playing the part is definitely going to help. It's hard to tell a guy to eat right if you ain't eating right? It's hard to tell a guy come in and lift because it's important for your health. Well, you don't lift.
So I see that McDonald's on your desk.
Yeah. So for sure.
Well, okay, so you won't cop to being smart, but will you cop to having really good time management skills? Because I have no idea how you got through college that fast without having really outstanding time management skills.
I'll take that one. I mean, I think there's some answers in there, too. Like, if you go to college with the expectation that you're going to have a really good time and party, then you're probably going to have a really good time and party.
Yeah.
I didn't. Like, I wasn't really me. So, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's time management for sure, and it's just in my mind, I want to work really hard when I'm young so that on the back end when I don't have the energy or the youthfulness, I don't have to work as hard, right? So I want to set myself. So that's like if you're 18, 19, it's not to say like figure your life out right now, but like the sooner you can figure things out and commit to them and make them happen, well, the less energy you have to give to that later on in your life.
Right. Well, I think the energy put towards that too, you can find whatever the heck happiness is, which we're all still trying to figure out. But like the sooner you figure out something you love and you putting effort into something you love, long term, a career, hanging out, in an NBA locker room every day. You love basketball. You love lifting weights, rather than putting energy into chugging tequila with the frats. Like, like that feels great at the moment, but that's not helping you a year from now. Like that happiness isn't there, and so
for sure,
that's wise shit.
Yeah. But I'll give the caveat, like, we're not saying don't enjoy your time.
Yeah, but if you're 21.
Yeah, but like at some point getting the check.
Yeah, if you get the check, you're gonna be drinking Patron instead of the shit out of the plastic bottle. That's what I'm trying to do.
That's a fair point. All right, well, let's wrap up this question. Where can people find you?
So Instagram is, I just looked this up too, Dr.Ramsey.Nijem.
Nijem.
Yep, Nijem. And then on Twitter, it's Dr. Ramsey Nijem. And those are the main two. I'm mainly on Instagram. I tried to get Twitter going for a little bit, but that didn't really work out. But I'm on both, so that's kind of where you can find some stuff.
Awesome.